Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of all fandoms, welcome to the Ferret Raccoon podcast, episode 149. I am your one and only host for this podcast, the Angry Raccoon, bringing you the first podcast of September 2020. And oh boy, am I glad we are finally back to normality to some extent, or at least in the month of September for the most part, as I'm sure is the case with a lot of places, not necessarily just around England, but around the world. People are returning to work, children are returning to school, the summer holidays is pretty much finished, especially given the date that this podcast is going up on, which is the 7th of September. I think everyone is back to the regular old grind, so to speak, and to be honest, I'm kind of glad that's happened, not necessarily because I'm like an old grouchy, man who just wants everything to be back to normal, but I think it's a good thing because we seem to be maybe past the hurdle that is COVID-19, or at least in my opinion, I think people are a lot more aware of the dangers of this thing and what it has essentially done to the rest of the world. And I'm honestly hoping that, I guess the one thing I should specify first is that the virus is still out there to some extent, and people still need to be safe, even if that does mean wearing the face mask and washing your hands all the time. But I think now that people know this and it's become more of a common phrase, more of a common, practice in day-to-day life, hopefully we'll be able to finally beat this virus and get back to a more normal for the most part. But it's still early days, and I really do not want another lockdown because I don't think I can handle that. But I myself, I'm back at work as of the 7th of September, the day this podcast goes up, and it's nice, and I'm kind of happy about it, like I've already said. But I guess we'll talk about what happened over the last 2 weeks for the most part, and I'll be honest with you guys, I have not necessarily been having the greatest of time. It's been very small little things that have kind of bothered me and annoyed me, and things that I can complain about, but I don't take it too much to heart. The first thing I kind of want to mention, which was one thing that I technically did do, and that was Record Store Day 2020. Now, for those of you who don't know what Record Store Day is, it is essentially an event where record store shops, those who sell vinyls and music, they essentially, for one day only, sell rare and exclusive vinyls, which you have to line up for, often queuing up very early in the morning, and you walk into the shop, and obviously you buy the records that you hopefully want. Obviously, with COVID-19 being a thing, Record Store Day wasn't really a social gathering or whatever you want to call it. So they've essentially had to split it up over the course of 3 days. This one in August was the first. I think they're referring to them as like month drops, so this was August drop, for example. And funny enough, it was the only month in which it actually has things that I want. And funny story, I did not actually go out to the record shop that I usually go to because I just wanted to play it safe for the most part. Like I said before, I was going back to work. I don't trust people to be washing their hands and staying clear of me and wearing face masks. That's just me. So I thought it'd probably be best to, for a change, stay at home and just hope and wait for the websites to put up the stock they had left come 6 p.m. And I got pretty lucky because the only two things that I wanted were available. So I bought them immediately and put them in my basket, bought them, ready to get, excuse me, mumbling there, and essentially waited for them to be sent to me. Then literally the Tuesday, the first Tuesday of this month, I believe, I think it was it? Yeah, I believe it was. I basically got a call from the record shop telling me that one of the records that I wanted, which I will say which one it is because it's no real secret, I essentially wanted the Gorillaz D-Sides vinyl, and they basically called me to say that it was a mistake that was put on the website as available and that I didn't actually get it, which was a little bit heartbreaking and a bit upsetting. And it was mainly because I really love the band Gorillaz, and that album would have completed my collection of having all of their main releases on vinyl. And it was quite annoying for that to actually happen. I was just like, oh, really? I'd rather it have just not been available instead of getting my hopes up. But you know what? I do not blame the record shop. I'm not angry at them. They refunded me. They called me to let me know instead of being like, you know, shady and just like, you know, whatever. So I appreciate that, but it was still a bit upsetting to not get that vinyl. But then again, it was the most expensive. It was like £35, guys. So, you know, £35 saved. A few other annoyances as well, like for example, a few days ago my cat decided to piss in and on my trainers, which was really annoying because she didn't do it on anyone else's but mine, so I had to throw those away. Had those trainers for a good 5 years and they were in really nice condition, and yep, I can't wash them. They're done. They were soaked. Laces, the inside, the top of it, completely soaked. The worst part about it was there were other shoes right next to it. She chose mine. So that was awesome. Thank goodness I have 2 extra pairs. But that was a pain in the ass. And yeah, I think in terms of annoyance, it's just been tiny, silly things that I've been trying not to let myself be bothered by, you know, first world problems and that. And, you know, I'm just waiting for the end of this month because things are going to hopefully get good at the end in October. But the other thing I did do was actually did play a new game. Speaking of October, I played the Dark Picture Anthology's Man of Medan, which for those of you who don't know, this is a video game coming from the studio Supermassive Games, who also made Until Dawn. Essentially, these games are, it's like a horror kind of point and click, quick time event-esque, you're watching a movie story kind of game. So, but at least there's a little bit more gameplay and there's a little bit more involved in this, and they usually have like real actors who play the characters, portray the characters and that. And this game only came out last year and I finally played it. I've actually beaten it about 3 or 4 times and I got all the collectibles because I wanted to kind of feel like I had everything, you know, complete it. I wasn't going to get all the trophies on this because some of these trophies, or at least to let's say get all the trophies or achievements in this game, I would probably have to play the game another 6 more times, and the intro is way too long for me to want to do that, and there's too many rules, and it just gives me a headache. I'm not doing that kind of padding stuff, but I'll be honest, I did like it. The only main issue I have with it is that it is very unpolished. I actually, as an experiment, played it without the update and with the update, and there's still bugs and problems in the game, just general stuff that I don't really understand why, like things just don't seem to work, animations are a bit off, there's things just not missing at times. It's a real shame, and I'm hoping that the next game that is releasing 30th of October, which is Little Hope, hopefully that game will be a lot more polished. Hopefully they'll kind of know what they're doing. Maybe they used a new engine and this was the first time they used it, but there was some stuff with like hair models and other things just kind of going crazy, which took me out of the immersion, and at points the game would freeze and stutter. It really slowed it down, and I think the beginning of that game is really slow. Every time I started a new playthrough, it was a massive chore just to get through that, the first 30% of the game. But if you're not necessarily a gamer, you don't play games, I would highly recommend watch someone's playthrough of this, because you might actually enjoy it, as it pretty much is a cinematic cutscene or film or whatever you want to call it. So that was pretty enjoyable to play, but I can't wait for the next game. I really think this one is going to be much better. But in terms of things that actually happened over the last 2 weeks, there were 2 major things in terms of like media and entertainment, and mainly revolving around video games. And the first one was Gamescom 2020. Now, typically it is a social gathering hosted event that takes place in some kind of stadium arena place, and this time obviously they couldn't do it for obvious safety reasons, so they did it as a digital event, and I think they did a pretty good job, mainly focusing on slightly smaller and newer games. I'm glad that there wasn't anything just you know, really ruining the show in terms of like how big and how popular it was. Not to say they didn't speak about you know, big AAA games, but there was a nice focus on smaller games, so I kind of commend them for that. And I guess the 3 things I wanted to talk about, which were, I should clarify, there were a lot of games I did like the look of, but I can't talk about all of them, because some of them there isn't too much to talk about them. But these games, even though I have very little to say about them anyway, they were the most interesting to me. So, and hopefully they may have slipped under the radar for a few people, or I kind of feel like these games are probably the most accessible games for people who maybe aren't necessarily into video games, play as many, or play video games at all. But at least when you watch the trailers, you know, link in the description, a download link, you at least be able to enjoy what's, you know, happening for the most part. Hopefully that makes sense. But the first trailer I want to talk about is for Sam & Max. This time it's virtual. This is the next game in the Sam & Max franchise, and it's going to be a VR game. And this is honestly the first VR game I think I've ever been interested and excited for. I love the Sam & Max franchise. I have a feeling that a lot of people probably don't know of these two characters. They are essentially a cartoon, you know, police, well, freelance police duo, buddy cop, duo, and they essentially have wacky adventures, and they have a very satirical and very good, witty, dry witty, almost crazy kind of sense of humor, as well as their world. And I think this series is due for a new installment. It's been so long since we had a new game, because they were originally point and click games, originally, because I think it's based on a comic, then it got a cartoon, then it mainly became a game series. And I'm just really happy to see that a point and click series with, you know, such great humor and this really kind of crazy odd cartoon world is getting a VR game that is going to allow you to interact with the characters, interact with the world, and actually kind of be in their very bizarre world. I think it's a fantastic idea, especially in VR. I think more people need to do things like this, where it is you are in someone's world and you just interact with things. I understand that those games aren't necessarily great for replay value, and I understand that you play it once, it's done. But, you know, for collectors and people who really like these franchises, that'd be great. I mean, I'm still waiting for Pokemon to do that. That would be amazing. I'm sure they're working on it. I'm sure Nintendo has its own, like, VR thing they're working on, which we'll kind of get to towards the end of this podcast. But I'm really happy with this trailer. I love Sam & Max, and it's glad to see them again. I just hope that someone does like another animated series. And I should also mention as well, if you want to know more about Sam & Max, or you want to watch a really great cartoon, just type in Sam & Max Freelance Police. It's a fantastic animated series. But moving on, the next game I wanted to talk about is Grindstone. This was unfortunately a game from Cappy Studios, who made games such as Below and Super Time Force. And this is their next game, which slipped under the radar for me, possibly because it was a mobile game, and now they are bringing it to, I believe, Switch and maybe other consoles. And the video in which they talked about the game for Gamescom, they mainly talked about, you know, how they were going about making the game, porting it to other consoles, and kind of them dealing with doing all this during the whole pandemic situation. So it is a very interesting watch, especially if you are into game design and you want to see someone else's perspective on life in 2020. But the game is pretty unique for a I guess it's a matching puzzle game, you know, very much something like Bejeweled or Candy Crush, except the main twist is you actually play as a character who is chaining up these attacks in order to, like, you know, slaughter these enemies, and that's his job. I love the animation, I love the character design, I love the sense of personality coming through in this game, and I honestly cannot wait for its physical release. It definitely looks like the kind of game that you could definitely sink an hour into, you know, stop, come back the next day, and, you know, just pick it up straight away. I think that's kind of what it was designed on, except a lot less microtransactions or greedy or constantly need an update kind of game. So I really like the look of this game. Check this trailer out if you want a new game to play, I guess. And the game which I liked the most, which I've still been thinking about ever since I saw the trailer, is the trailer for this game called White Shadows. Now, the first thing you're going to see, or one of the first things that you're going to compare this game to, is games such as Limbo or Little Nightmares. But I honestly think this game is on a whole nother level in terms of its visual style and storytelling. There isn't really much to say. I can't really describe this game. It honestly seems like it's going to be an open world or linear platformer where you play as a character in this world that is so striking and beautiful and cinematic looking, without coming across as just being like pretentious or like, oh, we're an artsy game. it really is interesting, especially the lighting. You have these harsh, like overpowering white lights hitting everything, creating these awesome shadows, and then really kind of emphasizing just how bright everything is with all these harsh shadows. And it really reinforces this like Hollywood bright lights, kind of old school like film look, as well as kind of emphasizing themes of like oppression and like showbiz propaganda, because you see a lot of very odd things in this world. Like, it is very like almost glitz and glamour and like highlights. You know, there's even points in the trailer where you see like lots of billboards for things in lights, and you see like, I know there's one point in the trailer where it even says something about like, oh, come see the crow or something like that, or something about like a crow. And you also see every single kind of character seems to have like the head of like an animal. Even there was like the train has like heads of animals. I don't really know what that is about. It's so weird and interesting, and the game just looks amazing and beautiful. I have no idea where the hell these people came from or what they're doing with this game, but it is so visually interesting and so striking. I honestly cannot wait to see more of this game and play it. I also love the fact that they are not telling us anything about the game. They are letting the world tell the story, much like the games I mentioned before. They do exactly the same thing, and I think this could be a real hit in terms of something that is just visually impressive, and hopefully it's a good game that plays well, has a great story, if there even is a story in the game. And I'm just very interested in its themes, because it definitely seems to be leaning a lot towards ideas of like identity and America and other things. You know, even the very ending of the trailer is quite interesting, where there's like a character in a cage and they kind of release him from the cage, and I guess they get killed by buzzsaws, and then you see the logo and, you know, lots of references to crows. I'm not really sure what's going on there, but it's very interesting. I'm actually really looking forward to this game. And let's move away from Gamescom. There's plenty of other things to talk about in terms of Gamescom. Gamescom is a very big deal. I can't really link you a video link to everything shown off, because I would literally be linking you 4 videos that are almost 8 hours long each. But we can talk about another event that I can link you as a full video link, and that is going to be Nintendo's Mario 35th Anniversary Direct. This was a surprise direct that came out of absolutely nowhere, and they basically confirmed a bunch of stuff regarding everyone's favorite plumber, Mario. And although there were a few things that are pretty cool to talk about, there isn't too much to really discuss. So I'm kind of just going to drop a few highlights that I thought were pretty interesting and cool, and I'll leave the trailers for them in the description and download link. The first one was something that people have really been wanting for a long time, ever since the Nintendo Wii U was a thing, and that is Super Mario 3D All-Stars, which is essentially a collection of Mario 64, Super Mario Sunshine, and Mario Galaxy. So 3 of the biggest and heaviest hitters in the 3D Mario series, all on one cartridge, all for you to play, hopefully remastered. Hopefully some of the technical issues that were that plagued a few of those games are fixed, and hopefully it isn't just a straight up port. That would be nice. I thought that was absolutely awesome to see that younger audiences will finally be able to play these games, and I'd be very can't even speak. I'm so excited I can't even speak. I'll be very interested to see how younger audiences even handle games like these, because they are of a very old design, still very good design, but very old design. And yeah, pretty good. I just hope that this means that there'll be more Nintendo re-releases on physical cartridge, because I know one thing that gamers and Nintendo butt heads about is Nintendo's lack or willingness to actually make a lot of their old back catalog, their older games available, and Nintendo's very awful manner in which they go about taking down fan-made games. I completely understand why Nintendo does it, because yeah, people are using their IPs, their creations to make other games, but at the same time, it's like, you know, video game preservation is important. We should be able to play every single game, you know, and obviously, you know, if you're not going to provide a way for me to play this game, then you give me no choice but to pirate it. But Besides that, let's talk about a slightly more original game, which I thought was pretty cool, although you could chalk it up to them possibly ripping off something, and that is going to be Mario Kart Live Home Circuit. Now, this is Nintendo being creative, thinking out of the box once again, and basically from what I can tell, this is, you buy this toy of Mario in a cart, and you essentially control said cart in like your house or wherever you want to set it up. You have the Nintendo Switch pad, you're literally looking at your first person perspective, and in a sort of, and I think the car itself has like a camera, so you see where you're going, you see what you're doing, and you can kind of control the car, you can use items, and I think it's just a fantastic idea. I partly feel like they were inspired by this one video I saw a while ago where a guy pretty much did the same thing. He basically put a like mini camera to his to a little like remote controlled car. He then was driving that around his house, and he was then I think he had like a driving setup, and was then had the projection of the car or the mini camera on a big screen. So I'm pretty sure Nintendo probably saw that and went, hey, let's do that and charge people money for it. Where I think they're going to get people interested is obviously kids, and I think secondly, toys. People, children and collectors are going to buy these Mario Kart toys because, you know, people want them. People collect toys. So Nintendo's already made their money. Even if the game is absolute garbage, people are still going to buy these things. I mean, lots of people do not like the Activision Skylanders series, but plenty of people have bought the toys and still buy the toys. So that's one future of video gaming, is just toys. You know, if you want to make a success, release it with toys or collectibles or some kind of vinyl figure. But I thought it was a pretty good idea. Whether it will last, I do not know. I honestly do wonder the price, and I wonder if they're going to do more characters. So right now we only see like a toy for Mario and Luigi. I wonder if they're going to go as far as to release one of, like, let's say Peach or Bowser, or, you know, and I do wonder if they do look really nice and the toys themselves are of good quality, you know, I would consider buying them. It'd be nice to have a just one shelf of just these really nice Nintendo made, Nintendo license, there's a tongue twister there, karts, because yeah, why not? I mean, other kart racer games don't seem to do this, and it'd be nice to see more people do this. But you know what? Props to Nintendo for tapping into an untapped market and coming up with, once again, a pretty good idea. Let's just hope it works and pays off. I can honestly see people, especially with bigger houses, making these crazy tracks. I just hope that you can do it in your garden. I'd love to see the potential, because I just want to see people's custom-made tracks. I want to see people doing all kinds of things, you know, things in the background, all that kind of stuff. This could be big, and that's what I like about it. It's a really cool concept, and that's why I wanted to talk about it. And I think, given the reception, a lot of people are pretty excited about it. I think it's one of the best things they've shown off in terms of an actual original creation. But that's going to pretty much wrap up the podcast. It's a short one, but hopefully I've detailed enough things that you guys are excited for, did know about. If you want to discuss more about these things, you can hit me up at my email at raccoonplusfriends@gmail.com. You can also follow me on Twitter at Angry Raccoon, only one C in the raccoon. All my links will be in the description and the download link. One thing that's probably not going to be in the download link, depending on if I can find one, is the video of the episode. As of right now, time of recording, I don't have one. So I can't really tell you what it is because I don't know what it is. I haven't found or seen any video that has made me go, yeah, that should be the video of the episode. So, yeah, depending on when you're listening to this, there either is one or there either isn't. Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm only one person. I don't watch every single video or music video, and I don't necessarily like everything. But yeah, that's pretty much going to wrap up this podcast. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I know it's, once again, another short podcast. I'm trying to get these podcasts done. I really do not like doing podcasts on my own, but there is absolutely nothing I can do about that. I cannot force people and endanger people to be on my podcast. So I guess I'm going to leave it at that. Everyone, please stay safe. Please be careful, especially if you're going back to work and school. I know it may seem a bit rude to distance away from people, but it's honestly the best thing to do right now. Just be safe. Just because we've all returned to work and we've all returned to school does not mean there is no threat, okay? Just remember that. On that note, I'll end this podcast like I always do by saying I was the Angry Raccoon, and I will see you on the next podcast.